stream. That oh, actually no, there isn't an extra. Alright, let's get this open. Go all the way back. To the French Revolution. Alright. Get you guys. Alright. So, yeah, if you turned your papers in, well, I mean, everybody got them. If you emailed them to me, I should have put the grade on Blackboard. If you don't have a grade on Blackboard, well, yeah, for your online students, because this is hybrid. If you don't have a grade on Blackboard, I didn't get your paper. So if you thought you sent me a paper and you don't have a grade, well, we've got issues. So maybe contact me about that. Okay, today is review day. The test is Wednesday. So, any questions from y'all before we start? Great, let's do the review. I hope y'all are ready. So, let's start with, well, the beginning. So, who was the author of What is the Third Estate? Very important in the beginning of the French Revolution. Yes, Sieyès. Author of the First Estate. What is the Third Estate? Sorry, not First Estate. What is the Third Estate? Yeah, keep him in mind. He sticks around. Also, as far as some ideas, Oh, hold on. Let me make sure that I don't have any short answers we're missing. Oh, there we go. Oh, yeah. Okay, duh. Third estate was pretty much everybody, yeah. First was the clergy, second was the nobility, third was everybody, was 90% of the population. Yeah. During the 1789s, the State General, what did the Third Estate come to call themselves? During the 1789 Estates General, which is like their parliament, what did the Third Estate call themselves? Yeah, the National Assembly. Because taking Sieyès' writing, because what is the Third Estate was basically, what has the Third Estate been up until now? Nothing. What does it want to become? Something. So in their minds, they were the country. They were the National Assembly. What was the name of the promise that the National Assembly made in which they swore to not disband until France had a constitution? Yes, the tennis court oath. In that indoor tennis court. Because, you know, it's Paris. Let me make sure this is okay. Wait, does this happen? Okay. All right. This happens before. Well, no, I guess we still need to put this here before Bastille Day. All right. um, which piece of legislation, later signed by Louis XVI, made all Frenchmen equal as citizens under the law, essentially getting rid of all privileges of the nobility? I need to fix that before I print it out. Yes, the Declaration of the Rights of Man. Of the Rights of Man. Yeah, this was sort of their new constitution. All right. Bastille Day. What's the date? That's the date you need to know for this test. My brain just shut off there. For this test, you need to know Bastille Day. What year? 1789. You were looking at the 2-year anniversary. When I was writing it down, I doubted myself on the year, but my brain said 1789, and I was right. So I guess that is now ingrained in my head. July 14th, 1789. That is the only date you guys need to know, I think. I don't think there's any other dates you guys need to know. There is a year you guys need to know, but that's later. Okay. Do. All right, revolutionary groups. There's only really one that I really talk about here. The group of Try that again. What was the group of revolutionary agitators who consisted of the working class, often used mob violence to get their way? Their name comes from the fact that they wear long work pants as opposed to shorter pants and tights favored by the nobility. So their name actually is due to the pants they wear. Yes, which is to say they don't wear tights. Sans glitz. Glitz. I don't know, French. Okay, 19. Okay. All right. Two rather important people went to the guillotine. Who was accused of treason, and after, well, it was accused of treason, and after several votes and, like, purges of the assembly, was sentenced to death by the guillotine. And this was really when this was when England got involved with fighting France. This was really when the guillotine got started being used. He famously was one of the first people to die by guillotine. Like, really big, important person. Well, she was there, but you don't have to read the Roman numerals. What was his title? 16th. Well, yeah, the king, Louis the 16th. Just FYI, the question's asked differently. That you're supposed to answer the guillotine. But the way the study guide is asked. Also, in terms of people going to the guillotine, who is the leader of the convention whose increasingly harsh measures eventually led to the Thermidorian reaction, which saw him and his supporters executed? Who led the convention? And eventually was killed by the guillotine due to the harsh and arbitrary laws he put into place. Good morning. You're good. Leader of the convention, whose increasingly harsh measures led to the Thermidorian reaction, which saw him and his supporters executed. No, well, he was a member of this group, so you're close. What's that? Actually, let's take a step back from that. Let's see if I can remember, or let me just see if I can find this real quick. Yes. Okay. The name of the period which harsh and arbitrary laws were put together to track down and eliminate any enemies of the revolution, typically using the guillotine. The Reign of Terror. Good. So, Reign of Terror. Whoopsie. And back to the other question, leader of the convention, he oversaw the Reign of Terror. Leader of the convention, his harsh measures led to the Thermidorian reaction, which ended up getting him killed. He oversaw the Reign of Terror. Give it your best shot. Yes. Robespierre. Yeah, Maximilien Robespierre. Maximilien Robespierre. I would rather you be wrong than not say anything. All right. Okay, that's it for the French Revolution. Yeah, absolutely. I was actually going to say if you needed me to go over this before you leave at the end of class, you can. I totally understand. It is a Monday. You got it? Okay. Absolutely. All right, on to Napoleon. So, what portion of the army did Napoleon lead against the Austrians? What was Napoleon's portion of the army? Not this part. Not this part of his career. Can you describe it? What portion of the army did Napoleon lead against the Austrians? It's like a certain type of unit. Wasn't the cavalry, but you're on the right track. Like it was a certain type of unit that he led. And since this is like early 1800s, is this early? Yeah, early 1800s. This was still late 1700s. This was still pretty cutting edge. That's not a military unit. The part of the military that he led. This was after the siege of Toulon. After Nelson, yeah. Well, this was before Nelson, but yeah. He was, yeah. Well, this is it's part of that. Yes. Do you know what that's called? I mean, you don't have to, but yeah, it's the cannons. It's the artillery. That's just, yeah, that's what it's called. It's the artillery. Yeah. What important historical artifact did Napoleon's forces find while he was in Egypt? He and his boys found a really important historical artifact that helped us out a lot when it came to understanding Egypt. Yeah, Rosetta Stone. Um, which member of the Directory attempted to use Napoleon to gain power for himself, only to be usurped by the crafty Corsican commander? Ew, I alliterated really badly there. What member of the Directory tried to use Napoleon for his own gain? They ended up outmaneuvered. I'll give you a hint. We've already talked about him. Oh, and Robespierre's dead. Not him. King Louis is also dead. Oh no, they got themselves well. Yes, Saez. Remember, Saez was the one that how is he even still alive? Saez tried to use Napoleon to overthrow the convention, and Napoleon's like, yeah, sure, I'll do that, and then Napoleon ended up taking over. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Would this be? I'll put this as a political maneuver. What was the name for the agreement where Napoleon sold a large tract of land to the United States for $15 million? The Louisiana Purchase. Sure helped us out. All right. What was the name of the agreement signed with Pope Pius VII that made Catholicism France's official religion again? Ooh. What treaty did Napoleon sign? Ooh, wrong one. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. What was the name of the agreement? I had answered questions. I'm sorry. What was the name of the agreement signed with Pope Pius VII that made Catholicism France's official religion again? The Concordat. Yes. Good, very good. Apologize, I got ahead of myself. What was the universal civil law code that Napoleon spread throughout Europe during his conquests? Yeah, it's right there in the name. The Napoleonic Code. Very good. All right. I will go ahead and add treaties in with battles, because, I mean, it's all the same, right? What treaty did Napoleon sign with Tsar Alexander I on a raft on the Niemen River, essentially giving Napoleon control over the continent of Europe? Told you guys that would be important, because I thought it was kind of cool. So I apologize for having a nitpicky question, but I thought that one was kind of neat. It's the treaty signed with Tsar Alexander I on the Niemen River. Yeah, Treaty of Tilsit. Yeah, I mean it's pretty easy. Not too bad of a word there. Okay. Thanks to the Battle of Trafalgar, Napoleon was able to invade England by sea. What was the name of the economic stranglehold he attempted to use instead? What was the name of the system he used to try and to economically strangle England? Right. What was that called? Continental system, because Europe is the continent. Okay. What, according to most historians, was the point in which Napoleon's fortunes were finally reversed, beginning his end as Emperor of Europe? this isn't, how should I put this? This isn't like a specific, this isn't like, for example, this isn't the Battle of Waterloo. I'm going to go ahead and say that. That's a later thing. But this is like the point at which things started to completely go backward for him. It was this big event. It was an event more so than like a battle, where things really started going backward. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Because he tried to invade Russia and it went poorly, which very much had to do with battles. It's just he never really got to have a battle. His men died of cold and starvation. Yeah, I wrote the invasion of Russia, which is not usually a good idea, unless apparently you're Finland, because cold just doesn't bother them. They've got antifreeze for blood. Okay, the last one. All right. What two nations finally put an end to Napoleon's schemes at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815? Nope. Yes. Yep, Britain and Prussia were the ones that fought Napoleon at the Battle of Waterloo. Now, you might have been thinking the Battle of Nations, which was Russia and I think it might have been Austria, which was before the Battle of Waterloo, which he also almost won, because he did also almost win the Battle of Waterloo, despite the fact that he wasn't like using his best men. So, yeah, okay. So let's actually do this real quick. A little aside here. What idea was formed during Napoleon's rule over Europe, particularly in Italy and Germany, which essentially pushed the idea that people, in particular their shared culture and language, made a nation, not a king? So what was the idea that formed during Napoleon's reign over Europe, that the idea that the people made a nation, not a king? And like I said, it's the word, it has a different meaning today. No. Nationalism. Yeah, it's the idea that the people are the nation. That's a different ism. Your brain was in the right ballpark then. All right. All right. So, what Congress, led by Austrian Foreign Minister Metternich, was created in order to maintain a concert of Europe, namely keeping a power like Napoleonic France from ever happening again? See, what was this Congress called? Congress of Vienna, because Vienna is Austria's capital. Also that, yeah. Do I have anything else with that? Oh, no, I did not. All right. Some nationalistic movements at the time. What large multi-ethnic empire did the War of Greek Independence fight against to secure a new independent Greece? So who did the Greeks fight against? Or who do they have to fight off in order to create a new Greece? which is to say, like, what country or empire? Yeah, the Ottomans. Ottoman Empire. There was a similar move made in the Kingdom of New Netherlands. The Catholic minority in the southern region wanted independence. All this stuff happened. Neutrality was guaranteed by Britain and Prussia, etc., etc. What was the name of this new nation that was created out of the Kingdom of New Netherlands splitting? Belgium. Because remember, Belgium's neutrality was guaranteed by England and Prussia. And now it's going to be important in 1914. Oh, hey, one of you should know this. What brothers in the German states sought to find unity among different groups? In terms of culture, in this case, tradition and fairy tales. The Brothers Grimm. I say that because one of you wrote about them in your paper. Okay. Oh. I think we got one more. Yeah. Actually, is this? Yeah, this is sort of technically. I guess this isn't really national. Whatever. Okay. What was the name of the failed uprising in Russia in which many disloyal army officers tried to revolt against Nicholas I? And this was the one that I missed on my oral comprehensive exam, so you all have to know it now.
I know it starts with a D. I know it starts with a D.
Yes. And with that, you will get it because it's multiple choice. But unfortunately, I can't help you beyond that. Yes, the Decemberist uprising. Yeah, because they're Russians, man. They like their winter themed names. All right, very good. All right, on to Romanticism. Philosophical Romanticism put forth by G.F.W. Hegel. He saw hardship and suffering, both the individual and humanity as a whole, as necessary for and necessary. Bleh. He saw hardship and suffering as necessary for mankind to mature. What was this called? This was an idea of philosophical romanticism where hardship was necessary for mankind to mature. What was this called? This was Hegel's thing. I'm still back in the French Revolution. What's that? Idealism, yes. I got mushy mouth there, I apologize. Ooh, right. Speaking of fun people. Utilitarianism. Because, you know, those people are fun. The English pastor that felt like charity for the poor, starving masses was a bad idea. So let the Irish starve. Who was that guy? Malthus. Thomas Malthus. There's like Malthusian thought named after this guy. Who was the rather radical utilitarian thinker who felt religion did more harm than good, supported many unpopular ideas like, you know, women equality and gay rights shouldn't be illegal? Also, his body is preserved in a display case rather than buried. Bentham, yes. A.M.? Yes. If you can't remember his name, you will see his face in your head. And we have the son of one of Bentham's followers who wrote the book On Liberty, which is still widely used today. Yes, John Stuart Mill. Not that his father wasn't doing anything, but I feel like we should talk about John Stuart Mill. Because we talk about James Mill as well, it's just going to get confusing. Great. All right, Industrial Revolution, lots of crap. So, okay, in what country did the Industrial Revolution begin? Yeah, Britain. I was going to say that one should be pretty easy. What was the major product of the early Industrial Revolution? What was the main thing they were creating? Ships? Not quite. We're still really early in the Industrial Revolution. Textiles. Clothing. Later, though. Later for sure. We get closer to the First World War, they are pumping ships out like crazy. What cheap, popular raw resource fed the early Industrial Revolution? Yes, cotton. Because remember I said cotton was just as important to the early Industrial Revolution as coal was. Right, between 1700 and 1800, a wave of gadgets spread across England, pushed by the Industrial Revolution, and I gave you guys that whole long list of things. What invention became extremely important in the later Industrial Revolution to stamp out iron fittings? It was also modified to pump beer in pubs, because I thought that was amusing. Yeah, the hydraulic press, because remember hydraulic it's basically a water pump. It's what you use the handle to pump it. Hydraulic press. Let's do this one first. As infrastructure got more expensive to build, people had to be convinced to invest in manufacturing. What was the original traditional investment capital that Europeans were used to? Remember I said as far back as like literally Mesopotamia, this was what you invested in if you wanted money. From like Mesopotamia until the Industrial Revolution, this was the thing that was money. And really even like today, it's a good indication of money if you have this. Because you can do a lot with it. Land, because you can grow stuff on it, you can have people rent it out and tax it, or rent it, or whatever. Alright. Okay. Still more. This one should be easy, I hope, especially those of you that have had my American history classes. What was the invention that allowed for fast, safe, and relatively cheap travel across England, reducing the price of goods and creating, for the first time, new towns around something other than churches. Railroads. Now, since this isn't an England-only class, railroads aren't going to be every other answer like they were in the American history class, because England really likes their railroads. Why did it do that? Okay. Good Lord, there's still more. Okay. What British city became the blueprint for how new industrial cities would be built? This was seen as like the first true industrial city. And it's kind of a nightmare. And looking at the options I give, 2 of them are nightmares for different reasons. The big old industrial city? Manchester. All right, one more. In response to the factories of hell in Manchester, yeah, they really didn't like Manchester. What group of anti-technology radicals took to breaking machines to return textile production to the artisans? What were they called? No, they were the ones that were running the city. This was anti-technology radicals. This was beyond utilitarian liberals. The Luddites. Yeah, I'll say this is a term that's kind of been adopted today for anybody that's like anti-technology. A Luddite. Led by Ned Ludd, which sort of sounds like a caveman name. It's really good. All right. And finally, unfortunately, you guys do need to know one more year. You don't have to know like a date, but you do need to know another year. Because it's a big important like revolution year. Recall the year that saw lots of short-lived revolutions. Because there were revolutions all over Europe, but they didn't last very long at all. I mean, it was in that one year. So they didn't really stick around. But it was at least important in showing that like people were not content in the 1848. I feel like, I don't know, it flows enough that I feel like it's easy enough to remember. So I decided to include it. Okay. On to chapter 19. Once again, I make fun of Louis Napoleon. I apologize to some extent. What name did Louis Napoleon Bonaparte Louis Napoleon Bonaparte take after 1851, in which he declared France a second empire? Napoleon what? Sort of. I mean, his name was already Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, and he went by simply Napoleon, but in a dynastic sense, he had a number behind his name. No, because Napoleon had a son. So that was technically Napoleon II. So this is Napoleon III. Even though Napoleon's son never, as far as I'm aware, never really did anything. Also, some stuff that happened under Mr. New Napoleon. With the help of Baron George Haussmann, what important French city did the new Napoleon make modern, which still stands to this day? Paris. Despite some issues in the 30s and 40s, it still stands. All right. Is that okay? That's Victorian era. I was gonna say I'm making sure that wasn't great. All right, on to England. And honestly, Victorian era England is like the most fun stuff. Unfortunately, can't really get that much into it. So, yeah, the dueling prime ministers. So in Great Britain, who was the former Jewish man who, after converting to Anglicanism, was elected prime minister several times? So formerly Jewish, converted to Anglicanism, and was made prime minister several times over the course of, like, I want to say 14 years? It was the same time period as the other guys. So. Disraeli, yes. R-A-E-L-I. And enemy of Disraeli, he sought Irish Home Rule, free trade, and a reformed army. He was elected prime minister 4 times in his political career, and was like prime minister for something like 8 years at one point. So this is Disraeli's opposite. Gladstone, William Gladstone. A very angry looking man. On to Russia. Let me get to where we are, because I want to make sure that I'm not remembering the wrong Russian. Yes, okay. It's like, is it the really obvious one, or is it not? Okay. After the assassination of Alexander II, remember the bomb thing? Who is his successor who cracked down brutally on any sort of revolutionary ideas, and also the Jews, because they were there? Yeah, Alexander II was assassinated. So who was his successor? Yep. Like I said, I was like, I feel like that's right, but it also feels like it's too obvious. So I had to go and check. And that's the one that I feel like I check this one every year. It's like, that's too obvious, but it's right. All right, on to the Victorian era. Yay. Everybody's breathing smoke. Oh no, there's not much to this, unfortunately. Okay. What was the name of the large exhibition in England that showed off the newest technologies from the Industrial Revolution? Yeah, the Crystal Palace exhibition. It was really neat. I mean, granted, it was a show of like the excess of England, but it was still pretty cool. What was the largest change in Victorian life which greatly affected the patterns of how people lived and worked? Gas lighting. 2 words. Gas lighting. So people could like work at night. And also the fact that like England barely has any sunlight anyway, so you gotta do what you gotta do. Alright. On to positivism, I suppose. Who was the positivist scientist who, after traveling the world and reading Malthus's An Essay on the Principle of Population, came up came up with the idea of natural selection? Charles Darwin. Who, being one of the most famous writers at the time, whose form of realism focused on the downtrodden poor, especially in regards to factories. Not a cheerful bunch of books he wrote. Charles Dickens, the other Charles. If I can type. Oops. If I write the answer. Alright. And on to unifications. We're almost done. Who was the main architect behind Italian unification? I should ask my Italian friend what she thinks. Since like there was a bunch of them. And I just pulled this one out because it's easy to remember. Yes, Camillo de Cavour. I assume it's Camillo, considering it's Latin language. Who was the main architect behind German unification, whose famous line spoke of uniting Germans through blood and iron? Remember, I named my derpy cat after him. Do you remember his full name? Yes. Yes, Otto the Great. Yes, this is Otto von Bismarck. It's multiple choice, so as long as you get Otto, you got it. All right, one more, and then we're done. So, discussing German unification, because, I mean, obviously I'm going to do a little bit more, since my big Zeppelin paper, like, was a big part of this. What was the major conflict compared to all the other conflicts, which finally settled German unification at the expense of another great power in Europe? I mean, by major, it was like it was still over in less than a month. This was the major conflict compared to all the others that finally settled German unification at the expense of another great power in Europe. So the settled German unification, but it beat up on another great power in Europe in the process. Because there were three, relatively speaking, small wars. This was the last one that Prussia instigated in order to unify Germany. Yes, the Franco-Prussian War. That this is one they had no business winning as decisively as they did. Because, I mean, France had just like conquered most of Europe a few decades before, and now Prussia just rolled in on them like nothing. So yeah. That's it. And then there's, of course, extra credit at the end, like there will always be. I actually need to put this all up on Blackboard for my online students, so I got to do that when I get home today. And of course, I'll put this online for them on Wednesday. So yeah, I'll see y'all on Wednesday. Oh, at the end of the semester. So like, I don't know, the second week of April, like a month. Yeah.
God bless you.
Take care. Good to see ya.
Me and him will be here Wednesday. We're going to Florida.
Okay.